Hey there, everybody. Welcome to Chalk Talk. I'm your host, Kim Davis. It's Tuesday. It's the last Tuesday of the month. It's June 28th. Can you believe it? We are almost into July. Welcome. I am getting used to this new time slot. I hope that you are too. If you are just discovering that we have moved from mornings on Tuesdays to 7 p.m. on Tuesdays, welcome. If you're watching us live, I appreciate you being here. Drop some stuff in the chat so we'll know so we can chop it up with you. And if you're watching the replay, let me hear from you. I'd like to know how you view Chalk Talk. There's so much to get to on today's show. I am going to talk about the things I told you. We're going to talk about the Rockets. I'm going to let you hear from the rookies. I'm gonna let you hear from one of the rookies' moms, an agent, and also from head coach Stephen Silas. We're gonna have a guest for an interview today, Coach Mike Haywood. We're gonna talk about a lot of stuff. It's so hard for me not to do a show completely about January 6th and those hearings. Let me just tell you, right? I could hardly get anything done today by just what I saw and heard. We won't go into all of that here, but here's what I will remind you, like I always do. Check it out, right? Make sure that you are paying attention. And for any of you, not that anybody who watches Chalk Talk, but if anybody happens to say, man, why should I vote? I want you to just pay attention to everything that's happening, wherever you stand on Roe v. Wade, Plessy Ferguson, Brown versus Topeka Board of Education. You know, what you think about rights for women, rights for equality for, Black people, for minorities, for people being able to date, love, and marry who they choose. Wherever you fall on any, I'm not going to tell you what you should feel, but what I'm going to say is vote your values. Vote your values. But the only way you can do that is if you are informed. So get informed, get registered, and vote. It's serious, people. All right. So I'm going to just stop there. I'm going to jump into what we're here to do. But, I always got to keep it real. And the biggest story anywhere is what's happening and what is being revealed, the stuff that we didn't know about the insurrection from January the 6th. So, welcome. Since the last time we were here together, there was a draft in the NBA. The Houston Rockets. Somebody asked me, a couple folks asked me, what do you think about the Rockets draft? I thought they did great. For people who said that Jabari Smith fell to 3, I don't know really how you fall to 3. He had been projected to go 1 by some, and he ended up going 3, which was the best thing that could have happened to the Houston Rockets, and probably the best thing for him. So Jabari Smith is who the Houston Rockets selected with their top draft pick in the first round. They really ended up getting 3 picks because they did indeed trade Christian Wood. So they got effectively they got 3 first round draft picks. So I'll let you hear from some of them today, from not just the players that were drafted. They had 3 young players: Ty Washington out of Kentucky, Jabari Smith, who played at Auburn, and Tari Eason, who played at LSU after. So listen, they got some great draft picks. They're young. They've got more young players. I'll let you hear later from Coach Stephen Silas as he talks about all that youth. But I am going to first bring in my friend and one of our favorite people to have on Chalk Talk, Coach Michael Haywood, who is apparently. Are you driving, Michael?
No,
Welcome to the show.
I actually
Okay.
parked this time.
Because I will not be responsible for you having any sort of accident.
No.
Welcome to the show. It's good to see you. It's been a minute.
Hey Kim, it's a pleasure to see you, dear. How you doing?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm super great, getting better.
Oh wow. Okay. Well, we'll have to talk later so I can find out how to do some of that, right? To be super great and getting better. All right. So Michael, I know that you stay on top of everything happening in the world of sports, not just college sports, but I want to start talking about college athletics. And I want to know your thoughts about how it's going with the NIL. And were you for it or against it? And what do you think how is that impacting college athletics?
Well, first of all, I'm for it because I've always thought players should get paid. And the reason I say that they should get paid is because certain universities have always been paying when other universities weren't. And so it was really unfair to a lot of student athletes that didn't have the opportunity to have funds, because I was on campus with kids that didn't have any money until they were able to work during the summer. And you had all these other kids going out to lunch, going out to dinner, living a quality life when these kids weren't able to do things that other kids were able to do because they didn't have any funds. And so I think, when the Supreme Court voted 9-0, I think it was a great opportunity for young people to have an opportunity to make money.
So the NIL has been in place. Some young people are making money. What do you think it means to college athletics? Will some kids stay longer? I mean, how does it impact the way the NCAA does business?
Um, the NCAA really hadn't put any ball outs in to control the NIL. The NIL is a free gamut right now. I mean, it was initially headed into where marketing firms would take over, and the marketing firms would market these young men out, young men and women actually, and you would get paid a certain amount of money. However, it is the head coaches in most universities that are deciding how much money in which these student athletes are receiving. So it has nothing to do about marketing firms, has nothing to do about uh, doing representation or doing marketing for certain businesses. Universities are just sitting up and starting to pay money. I mean, and it's going to turn into the have and the have nots. You're going to have a group such as Alabama, LSU, Texas A&M, Texas, that are going to be the haves, and then you're going to have these lower schools that aren't able to pay this money. Like, for example, you decide on who's going to pay the money. Tulsa, University of Houston, unless they climb. Well, they might have a little bit more money when they climb into the next conference. However, there are going to be schools that aren't going to be able to keep up with the haves and the have-nots.
So, Michael, if that's the case, then what's the difference, right? I mean, you're just saying now it's legal, because if you're
It's
saying the schools are paying them already, but aren't there young people? Isn't it fair to say at some institutions, especially women, right, who are now getting, because just from the little bit of research I've done about it, who are getting payments who otherwise would not have gotten payments.
well, for example, there's a gymnast at LSU. And the gymnast at LSU, when it was first talking about coming out, the athletic director and assistant athletic director said to me, she will make more money than any football player or basketball player at the university, primarily because she was driven by social media. She had over 1 million and some people on her social media page. And so, with that being said, she was going to be a hot commodity. Depending on the social media in which athletes are receiving, that will increase or lower the NIL.
Okay, so makes a lot of sense. And you know what? I didn't even set this up right because I most people see you that you haven't seen you in a while, but I should remind people of your background if it's the first time you happen to be listening to Chalk Talk or your first time getting a chance to see Coach Haywood on the show. He has almost 30 years of coaching experience. He's coached at some major universities. Started at, let me see if I can get this right. Air Force, uh,
West Point,
West Point. Okay, yeah, West Point, close. And then
Ohio U, Ball State,
wait, I thought you Ohio, Ball State, then Notre
LSU,
Dame, LSU,
LSU,
Texas,
Texas,
Notre
Notre Dame,
Dame, and then back to Miami, right?
Miami of Ohio,
Miami of Ohio. Okay.
right, Pittsburgh, and then TSU.
I forgot about those. Okay, so all of that. So this is why I invite Coach Haywood on, because he has a wealth of experience. And I'm not going to ask you to go into any details right now, but I just want to know your thoughts initially when you saw kind of the feud between two people that you worked with, and Jimbo Fisher and Nick Saban. Let me put it to you this way. Let's answer this. Were you surprised that that escalated the way it did?
I was surprised by the things that Nick said. That surprised me because Nick is a calculated guy. I worked for Nick for 3 years, and everything that Nick does is calculated. That wasn't calculated because that just opened Pandora's box.
Hmm.
And then I was not surprised by the way Jimbo responded because Jimbo would respond the same way when we were in meetings. He,
So that's just who Jimbo is.
that is just Jimbo, and Jimbo doesn't take any crap. Doesn't I mean he's just straightforward and to the point. And you're gonna open the door. You're gonna say that I'm sitting up here cheating. You better go look in the mirror. I mean, I was like, and then I had a buddy of mine go over there last week, Lance Thompson, defense coordinator over at Marshall. He called me up and he was headed over there. I think it was 2 weeks ago. He was headed over to do a camp. I say, hey, when you see Jimbo, tell him I say nice job with his feud
Yeah,
because
that was spicy. Yeah.
it's not over. Don't think it's over. Wait to media day, SEC media day.
Let me ask you another question. There's going to be some changes, some other changes in the NCAA because the commissioner that we call him uh,
Yes.
is leaving. How is that? How big of a deal is that, and what's that going to mean to college athletics? Because Emerson has been there for such a while.
Well,
How's that going to change the landscape?
one thing it's going to do is it's going to let some of those assistant coaches that he's blocked from getting back in, they're going to be able to get back in the SEC because they've been shut down. There's a list of them that have been shut down from coming back to the SEC that are good football coaches. But
So
he
why were they
tells them,
shut down?
why were they shut down? Because of improprieties. They did some things
The
that they
usual
probably,
stuff.
yeah, the usual
Yeah.
things in the SEC. And, he made certain comments to head coaches that, hey, if I'm telling you not to hire him, and if you hire him, then we're going to start looking into your background. so,
Oh wow.
so, so he made it known that you will not hire certain people as long as I'm here.
So that's going to change,
That will
possibly.
change. Oh, it will change.
Yeah.
You will see some great recruiters come back to the SEC.
So what else is going to change with Emirates, and who do you think is going to follow him? Who's
I'm
going to
not
be the
sure.
next head?
I'm not sure who's going to follow Emmett. I was with Emmett when Emmett was the president at LSU, and so I can't remember if we were together 2 years. No, we were together 3 years when I was at LSU, and then I left, and then he left and went to Washington. And when he was at Washington, I interviewed with him for the head job, so I got great respect for him, and he's really an outstanding man. But I'm not sure who's going to follow him. They don't really know. It'll come out the blue.
Wow.
It will
Talking
come
with
out.
Coach Mike Haywood, who has just a wealth of history in college athletics, and now you have started. You have your own businesses, and you're doing you have companies here that work also up in Notre Dame. Do you ever miss the day to day grind of coaching, especially when it gets to be like you just finished with spring, and now we're getting ready to go in a couple months into the season? Do you miss
I
it?
miss I miss the relationship with the players and help building upon the foundation in which you recruited them from and building them from young boys to outstanding young men. I miss that day to day work. I don't necessarily miss the X and O's and the, the scheming on the field. I don't necessarily miss that anymore. I've grown past that now.
Really?
And yeah, but like uh, the accountant for my company is Joseph Winston, who I met when he came to Notre Dame with my cousin for camp. And then I got the head job 2 years later, and he was committed to UConn. He decommitted from UConn and came to play for me at Miami of Ohio, and started as a freshman at offensive line, and now he's my accounting for my company, and he and I talk like every other day. And so, that's rewarding because he was from straight Jesuit high school, came to Miami, got his accounting degree, and doing great things with his business. And I really enjoy working with him each and every day.
So I think what's really interesting is, we don't hear a lot from people who, when they're involved in sports, when they then do something else. So, I always talk to you because you're just such a wealth of information, and also because we're friends, like family. Let me ask you this: are there any coaches that are kind of up and coming, particularly African American coaches, assistants that we should be looking for, that you think are next to kind of pop on the scene as a head coach?
Oh, one of them is Bellamy that's at the University of Michigan. And he and Ryan Clark, who's on ESPN, they went to school together. And
Did you coach Ryan Clark? Was he
yeah,
there with
I
you?
coached Ryan
Yeah,
Clark.
I thought so.
We were there. We were there 4 years together. Which Ryan he was a really good player. But Ryan played because he was really smart. Yeah, and Ryan was going to get cut from. He went as a free agent to the Giants, and he was going to get cut from the Giants. And the head coach said, "Well, why are you cutting him? Because he's smarter than you." Because Ryan knew every position on the field on defense and could tell everybody what to do and how to get lined up. And so he really became a much better player when he went to Pittsburgh. He became an outstanding player at Pittsburgh, and then he played a little bit with Washington, but he was a good football player. But Bellamy, he's a good football player. Um, I look at Freeman at Notre Dame, who's the head coach at Notre Dame right now.
Hmm.
He popped up on the scene, and he popped up. He's probably a little bit ahead of his time, but
Mm.
we're trying to support him uh, because it is hard to be a head coach at such a prestigious university when you have not taken the levels to build up and understand all the adversity in which you have to deal with. Because most coaches struggle with time management,
Yeah.
because you have so many things to do off the field, they lose the ability of coaching. Because if they don't set their schedule appropriately, they don't ever coach. All they're doing is taking care of problems and solving problems. They're the problem solver. And so I think that he has a bright future ahead of him. But there's some young guys out there that are doing some good things. I like, Bo Davis over at Texas, an outstanding football coach. Carl Dunbar over at the Pittsburgh Steelers, wonderful football coach. And then a great football coach that played for me and then played for Lovey. Played for me at Notre Dame, played for Lovey tailback at Chicago. He just got out of coaching and went to high school football. He got out of college coaching, went to high school football coaching. And he said, "Coach, I think I found my passion."
Who was that?
Armando Allen. He coached for me at TSU.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, but he said, "Coach, I think I found my passion." He said, "Helping these young kids right here, Coach, in which they appreciate the things in which you're doing for them." And he said, "I believe that I can help change lives in this high school rank more than I could in college football."
Well, that's awesome, for people to find their space. Now, you brought up two places that I want to ask you about before I let you get back on the road. Um, Texas Southern University, and the SWAC in general, with the influx, of course, the Dion factor, with McClellan going to be head of the SWAC, and guys like Eddie Robinson going back to coach. Where do you think, and Florida A&M joining the conference? What do you think about SWAC, and how what's the future look like for Texas Southern University football
McCullough,
program?
going to the SWAC and being the head of the SWAC is an outstanding move because he is a bright athletic director and commissioner. The only problem is that you know when you start off in the SWAC, sometimes it's hard to get elevated to Division I institutions. He's a guy that belongs in a Division I institution because he's that outstanding, and I think he's doing great things for the SWAC as a commissioner. But he should really be at a Division I school, heading up basketball and football. Then you look at the SWAC in general. When they added Dion to the SWAC, they added popularity, they added media, they added social media to it, and he's doing a good job in coaching. He has some guys over there that are doing a really good job in coaching. And then he jumped up on the scene, and with that NIL and getting that kid, and
Yeah.
Nick, and then Nick coming after him, and And then he's like, hold on a minute now. You don't want me to start talking about what you're doing
Right.
because he went through it, he lived it, he knows what's going on. And so they all backed off of him. But for that kid to go there, that's an outstanding opportunity for both of them, for the university, and then also for the young man that's going there to play. I think he'll get really good coaching over there. He'll get NFL coaching over there, so he'll do a good job. TSU, um, people don't understand. TSU isn't winning because of the coaches in which they put in there. TSU is losing because of the lack of funds in which they put into the football program. I tell Johnny Jones all the time because, I worked with Coach, Mr. McCullough, to get Johnny Jones at TSU because I thought that it was a great opportunity, and there were a lot of other people that helped also. But at the bottom line, you know, basketball is supported at
Yeah.
Texas Southern University. Football is not supported at Texas Southern University. We could not even feed our kids in the hotels for breakfast. We could feed them pregame meal, but we had to go to McDonald's, Wendy's, or somebody to purchase food, and then you couldn't even eat the food in the hotel because you're not allowed to bring food into the hotel. And so we had to go to other places to get food to feed our kids. Improper nourishment at halftime. You realize that Texas Southern loses games in the third and fourth quarter. They lose
Yeah.
game in the third and fourth quarter because their kids are cramping on the sideline. They don't have the proper nutrition at halftime to support them, for them to be the athletic, for them to be uh, the motor that they should be. They may start off like a Porsche and end up like a gremlin, all right, because they don't have the nutrition at halftime. Because the head coaches don't have the funds to purchase what they need at halftime. They start off at certain times during the year and having the funds, and then at the end of the year, you're in the negative. And so,
Yeah.
but what people don't realize, who's the last coach that won over there?
Oh wow.
Johnny Cole.
Johnny Cole.
All right, so this is what people don't realize. Johnny Cole had it in his contract that when he played the pay-in games, like if he was playing Baylor, University of Houston, Texas A&M, Johnny Cole got paid a certain percentage of whatever the money was, and the rest of the money stayed in football. Well, when I was there, half of the money went to the president's fund. Something the president took half of the funds on those paying games, and then you kept half of the money. Well, sometimes you didn't even get to keep half of the money. You lost the whole check. All right. And so when you lose half of the money, that's still tough. But when you lose the entire check, I mean, what are you going to run your program off of? And this is what people on the outside don't understand. This is what the alumni don't understand. And, I used to listen to Dr. Mitchell. She's sitting up here, who is a great supporter of Texas Southern University, all athletics. But she didn't understand that the money was being taken out of the program and
Mm.
didn't have enough to fund the program. And
That's
let me tell you,
interesting. Yeah.
yeah, because then you have a psychological. When you go over to Prairie View and you see Prairie View's facility on campus, and then you come back and play a home game at TSU practice field, you have a negative psychological disposition because you realize the people over at Prairie View is putting money into their football program, and TSU didn't put money into their program. So people don't understand the psychological disposition in which you have to deal with, because certain universities are getting certain things and your university isn't.
Well, yeah, Charles said, well, that's revealing. I think it is. I think it's, you're right. I think a lot of people don't understand that, right? When you think about the young men not having the kind of nutritional things they need to be able to perform, because that's all a part of it. So let me ask you, one of the things that's happened, and I know you're not at the university anymore, but the Texans have this new partnership with TSU athletics, and they probably don't really realize all of these things either in terms of the kinds of stuff that they're going to do to help some professional development, obviously some funds to help with some things on campus, putting some money in women athletics, particularly in the scholarships. Um, those relationships, Is it because, well, let me ask you this. Why is that the case with football and not basketball? Is because there's a lack of respect for TSU football with administration, or that's just how it's always been run, or in recent years?
That's how it is. I mean, the athletic director is a basketball guy, but it doesn't take as much money to fund basketball. And if you notice, TSU doesn't come home to play till late December or January, right?
Right. Those are all money games. Right. Their whole
All
preseason
money
is money
games,
games. Right.
right? But they only have to give a certain percentage of that money to the president. The rest of it stays in their budget. So then they have money to fund their program. When I went over to TSU, I walked in the men's locker room and I walked in the women's locker room. It looked like the Taj Mahal. I walked in the football locker room and they had a yellow banner going around blocking you off from the locker room. And I said, well, why is that? They said, because we don't want recruits to go in there because we tell them that we're under construction. But the bottom line is that it's flooding in there. We're not under construction. So the whole locker room was flooding because of the trees that had grown underneath the foundation and had cracked the foundation. So anytime it rained, it flooded the entire locker room. So then I met with Charles and we met with the president, and the president gave me $720,000 to redo the locker room. So we fixed the foundation, we put new lockers in there, we put study carrels in there, and we did, and everything was starting to go along the pathway. He said, all right, coach, I got another $720,000 for you next year. I don't know if he got fired or he was removed. President Lane came in and said, no, you're not getting the 720. You work off the budget you have. I said, whoa.
So that's a big difference. Yeah.
It's a huge difference. All of a sudden, you lost 720. You played two playing games, was probably about $800,000. You get $350,000 of that. All right, you didn't lost over $1 million and some dollars. But that's what people
Well,
don't understand.
yeah. And I guess the thing that I don't understand is why that's the case. That's from the administrative level, obviously. You talked about what a great job Charles did. He couldn't help with that when he was there.
Charles was helping until there was a president change. When President Lane came
Oh,
in,
that's right, because he came in after. Okay.
right? And when President Lane came in, Charles came to me and said, hey, you got to work off your budget. He's not giving you the $720,000.
Got
I
you.
said, I said, wow, thank you.
Well,
But
that's a
I
lot.
love, right? I love Charles.
Yeah.
Charles could only do what Charles could do.
Yeah. Because he's not the president. He was only
Right,
the AD. Right.
right. And now maybe the president will help. Maybe she'll get some funds over there so Buddy can win because Buddy's a good football coach. But what's he
Yeah.
won? Two games in the last 4 years.
You're
That's
right.
tough.
You're right. They kind of falter in the second half. All right. Before I let you go, two other quick questions. Bubba McDowell, the new head coach at Prairie View, who of course put in his dues. He'd been at PV a long time, and of course, we know him from the league. What kind of head coach do you think Bubba's going to be?
I think Bubba's going to do an outstanding job because he understands what it takes in college football to be successful, but at the same time, he understands what it takes for guys to move on to the next level. He understands what it takes during the off season and the work in which you have to put in to be successful as a coach and as a player because he's been successful as both. And I think that he's hired a good staff, and I'm looking forward to watching him because I think he'll be successful.
Coach Mike Haywood, always a ton of information. We should do this more often. I didn't get to ask you on this show. I know we've talked about it. Your thoughts about the Texans hiring or elevating Lovie Smith to be their head coach?
I think Lovey's an outstanding coach. I had one of my players and coaches play for him at Chicago, and they always gave him great praise. And I think he'll be a better coach, have more success as a head coach in the pros again than when he was at Illinois. But I tell you what, he did a great job when he drafted Stingley out of LSU. I think Stingley went to Dunham High School over in Baton Rouge. But when I saw that young man play as a freshman, I said, "Oh, he's gonna be a first-round draft pick." This kid was outstanding, And then he went and drafted two Alabama guys. He drafted Mitchum
Mm-hmm.
at wide receiver. I think he was out of Baton Rouge too. He went to Lab High School, I think. and he was an outstanding football player. Then he went and drafted a linebacker. Let me tell you this: anytime you draft anybody from Nick Saban's team that is a linebacker, if they can't play, they can coach. because, because let me tell you this, you will know every check. I mean, every audible, you will be at the right position, and at linebacker, you will be right rerouting guys, cutting guys off, dropping back in the hole. You know where the ball is supposed to go, and you know when it's a run formation and a run down. You'll be a smart football player, and he's going to be a smart football player and bring something to the table. Because I'm looking forward to watching those guys play. Give me something to watch over there.
I think they're going to be fun to watch. I think it may have been during rookie camp, and so we're talking with players afterwards, and Mitchell comes up, and somebody asked him about you know his thoughts about making the jump right from the college ranks to the pros and the different system. And he said, "So I mean, I went to Alabama. I mean, he wasn't being flippant, but he was kind of like."
No,
And I just kind of started laughing because exactly he's like, so I'm okay. I went to Alabama. Not like he didn't have anything to learn, but like I'm not scared of this. I come from a pro team, basically. You
every
know.
every day I lined up to play, I was playing against first rounders. When I lined up in the game was a relief compared to what I went through in practice. And now I'm playing against first, second, and third rounders. So what am I supposed to be concerned about? I
Right.
said, shit, it's a day off to go play.
Yeah, it's especially after playing for Nick, right? I remember when you
Oh,
were coaching for him, and I was covering you guys when I was in New Orleans, and you were in Baton Rouge. So, um, listen, I always appreciate it. I know you're in the car, so I won't keep you too long. But thank you as always. We have to do this again soon, and be safe and good luck with your business.
hey, thank you. I appreciate that. Now we're doing a lot of work up at the up in South Bend where the University of Notre Dame is. A lot of alumni, a lot of fans from the past are providing a lot of opportunities. And like I've only been in Houston, including this trip, because I'm in Houston today, 31 days this year. But I like to do a little bit more work in Houston now.
Well, I guess we should tell the people what your business is. I totally left that out. What is the business that you're in?
We are doing, we're pouring slabs for homes. We're doing the flat work. We're doing driveways, sidewalk, porches. But at the same time, also, we're demoing houses and renovating houses and we're doing demos at apartments, mansions, and renovating apartments and mansions in South Bend, Indiana.
Well, continued success, and I'll be sending you that sponsorship package for Chalk Talk, and and we will go from there. Hey, I appreciate you, Michael. We'll talk soon.
Thank you, dear. Appreciate you. Love you. Have a good day.
All right, love you too. All right, that's Mike Haywood, Coach Mike Haywood, who has a wealth of experience, in football and sports and college football, but he was such a smart coach, and he knows so much about the game and relationships. And I know he's working on a project that he's not quite talking about yet, but when he does, he's going to come and talk to us about it on Chalk Talk. So hopefully before the college football season starts this fall, we'll have something exciting to share about what's going on with him. So you're listening to Chalk Talk. That was Coach Mike Haywood. I'm going to switch gears a little bit, and I'm going to let you hear from a couple of the new Houston Rockets. They had a draft last week. Jabari Smith was chosen third overall. His father played in the league. His dad was there at the press conference last week, and he was asked, of course, people thought that the night of the draft that he looked like he was disappointed because he didn't go first overall. And I thought Jalen said something really important. He said, everybody wants to be number one, right? But he talked about being glad to be with the Rockets and the future. So I'm gonna let you hear from this is Jabari Smith.
You know what I mean? Like, even when I was younger, my dad always made sure I was playing the game the right way, always made sure I was caring about winning. And as you start playing against pros and playing against people at the same caliber as you, everybody can score. So it's not like scoring is just something that everybody can do in the league as you go down through 1 to 15. So, you just got to do things to separate yourself and do things to affect winning. And I feel like if you go into every game focusing on winning and not, scoring more points than you did the last game, or playing better than you did the last game, everything else will take care of itself. So that's kind of how I approach the game. I feel like when I approach the game like that, I play better.
That was Jabari Smith, and one of the things he was a great defender in college, right? And I did ask Raphael, the general manager, just about the collection of talent and what it meant for the defense. And of course, he says, they're all young, and they are. But of course, when Steven Silas was asked about him, he said, I told Raphael one of the things we needed was more defense, and he went and got these three guys. So while it's not the same as playing in college, the fact that you've got some players who like defense, who are committed to being good defenders, is a good thing. Here is Wallace Prather, who is Jabari Smith's coach. Wallace is a friend of Jabari's father, who played professional basketball for a while. They were friends growing up, and so he's an agent who went to Cornell, played basketball there, never played in the league. But this is him talking about Jabari and what you can expect from him.
It is, like I said, he wasn't a top-rated player in his class, so he's never had the I'm the man mentality. So he's just been working his tail off. So the accomplishments that he's making is just strictly off of hard work. They're not expected; they're earned. So he's going out there with that type of mindset. So it's easy to be grounded when you feel like this wasn't what was deserved, or maybe not deserved, but what was expected. It wasn't until March or so when people started talking about how high of a pick he would be. He wasn't preseason All-American. He wasn't preseason. He just played well throughout the year.
No sense of entitlement.
Zero sense of entitlement. Even now, like, you hear what he's talking about. He didn't mention Rookie of the Year.
So that was Wallace Prather, and he's talking about Jabari, and it was a great interview. Visited with him some more, even beyond that clip, and invited him to be on Chalk Talk. So hopefully we'll get him on, and you'll get a chance to hear from him, because I think he's just an interesting person to talk to. I like talking to athletes and coaches, but I also like to get insight from other places as well. So the second player the Rockets chose in the draft was Tyree Eason. And so this is Tari. He was there with his mom, but here is Tari when the day after the draft.
Well, really, it was just a product of my work. I think I worked on a lot of aspects of my game, my shooting, my bowling, things like that. I've always had a pretty good defensive mindset just from my competitive nature. And, from high school, even before then, I wasn't heavily recruited. So, I've always carried that chip on my shoulder and that real edge that, that's helped me carry through.
And I also got a chance to visit with his mother, and I want you to hear from her. She's a single mom, and she said, it is kind of a dream, but that he works really hard, and she's glad to see him at this next level.
Like he asked me a few minutes ago, there's nothing to really quantify, like, what's happening. I think I can't wrap my mind around it still, and at some point, maybe I will. Maybe after some rest. I feel like I haven't slept in a month, but this whole thing is a dream.
What has that process been like? And because you are familiar with it, you were able to, I'm sure, help guide him. Can you talk about that a little bit?
It's been a lot of basketball journey, but the thing is I've always been a fan, so I think that has made it easier for me to, schlep all over the country and get him to these games and practices and join whatever teams, because sometimes they throw him in as a ringer and random tournament, and like Palmdale last minute when there was only 4 kids and they needed a 5th, like we were like that, we joined those kinds of hustle moments in basketball. Just to get him in the gym, and that's why he is what he is about getting in the gym, and it's been exciting to watch. He's kind of always wanted this.
One of the stories his mom shared with me is that she said he's always wanted it. He could see himself in the league, and when he was in grade school, one of his teachers said, you've got to have a backup plan. And so he told his teacher, I believe she said it was a 5th grade teacher, this is what I want to do. I want to play professional basketball. So the other day she said they drove by the school, and he stopped and got out and did a live, probably on Instagram, in front of it, and said to the teacher, I told you I would be here. But she says he's always focused. And so the look that you see on his face when you see him is just, it's focused. If he's talking about basketball, he's just really intentional and really focused. So look forward to working and actually getting to know these young men, just like the ones last year, that came in. I'm a big Josh Christopher fan, and also Jalen. Just got a chance to know Josh a little bit more. But the other player the Rockets got in the first round via a draft, the Dallas and then Minnesota with some trades, is Ty Washington, the guard out of Kentucky. Where is he?
I
Oh,
mean,
there he
it's
is.
crazy. I'll start off with the second part of your question. We actually just talked about that a little earlier today. All of us being in SEC schools, playing each other twice or once, it's just real crazy now that we're all NBA teammates. So, I mean, we all know what we can bring to the table. Me personally, I feel like one thing that I bring to the table, no matter where I'm at, is just my winning spirit. I always want to win, whether that's me scoring 30 points, 0 points. As long as I'm out there on the court helping our team win, that's all I really care about. So I say that, my ability to play point guard, get the team organized, stuff like that, be able to space the floor, shoot, pass, defend multiple positions. Just going out there and pretty much do whatever it takes to win. I feel like winning takes care of everything, so that's why I really just go out there and play with a chip on my shoulder, just going out there trying to get a win.
I like the fact that when they talk about the chip on the shoulders, I want to make sure that um, I put that in some context for you. This isn't about I'm mad because this is where I'm selected. Sometimes people use different things as additional motivational tools, and that's what they're saying. They're glad to be here. Everybody would probably like to be the number one pick in the draft for what that means, right? But in terms of you could see the sincerity or sense the sincerity from each of them about the gratitude they had and about being a part of this Rockets organization, playing with the other young players and the future that is ahead. So, I think it's an exciting time. I did ask Stephen Silas really what he learned from last year having 5 players under 20 years old, right? And now this year you've added 3 more. So at least he has a little experience working with the younger players. And here's what Silas
I
said.
guess I learned that patience is a virtue for sure, right? Like, I shouldn't expect it to happen right away, but there's also expectation that goes along with it. So you have to be patient on one hand, but also kind of pushing with the other hand and giving them as much as you can possibly give them without overloading them. So finding that balance is kind of where I was at last year, and I feel like I have a pretty good feel for it now.
I believe he is built for it too. That was Rockets head coach Stephen Silas. What's up next for these young players? Well, they'll go out to Vegas for the summer league, and so that happens. I believe it's next week. So they'll be out in Vegas for several days and get a chance to play and match up. It should be interesting to see what happens. In other news that I promised to update you on before we get out of here, of course, the Deshaun Watson disciplinary hearings got started today. So far, not much has emerged from those hearings. Listen, a few things, you know, that have come up. Last week, we had our legal expert, attorney Charles Drayton, on when it was announced that Deshaun had come to terms and settled with 20 of the 24 ladies who have filed the civil lawsuits against him. And if you remember last week when I said, I wouldn't be surprised if the NFL didn't kind of lean on him a little bit and say, hey, make some of this go away. And, you know, no promises, but it's going to be real bleak with all these cases hanging over you. So let me give you another update. So the NFL, under the current CBA, and it used to be that Roger Goodell was judge, jury, and senator, all, and he did all of it. So they separated a bit, and now they have an arbitrator who everyone says is immensely qualified. The arbitrator is paid by both sides, the NFL Players Association and the NFL. So the arbitrator is who will make the recommendation or the decision about if there is if there's a suspension and for how long. And I say if because until that one is given, it's still if. I tend to think that there will be, but we'll see. So last week it was leaked by the NFL. Let's be clear about that. That the NFL was seeking an indefinite suspension with Watson sitting out for at least 1 year and then being allowed to basically apply to be reinstated. So, why would they leak that? Well, so let's say the arbitrator comes back and says 4 games. She won't say 4 games, but whatever it is, 8 games, 10 games, pick a number. The league can say, well, see, we wanted it to be longer, but the arbitrator came up with this, and we don't want to overstep really, up in the arbiter's work because that could jeopardize or be a problem for this new part of the CBA. It's all about optics, and it's all about what they think from an NFL standpoint they can handle from what's the fallout going to be, right? What's the blowback going to be about whatever they decide? And keep in mind, there are no criminal cases, but it doesn't have to be criminal for the NFL to give any kind of suspension. So I'll be curious to know, really, to see how it all kind of shakes out, because I just don't think we know yet. And so we'll have to wait and see. So that's the only update I have. I don't really have an update other than that. So that's what's happening in the Deshaun Watson case. And in baseball, the Houston Astros have been playing like the New York teams, it seems like, for a month. Last week they played the Mets here in Houston. Then they went up to New York and split 4 games with the Yankees. One of those games was a no-hitter. They split. They won 2. The Yankees won 2. Now they're now playing the Mets in New York. Earlier today, Kyle Tucker hit a 3-run homer in the top of the 3rd that put the Astros up 4-0. So now the Astros have scored another run. I'm trying to see how that run was scored. Oh, Jake Myers single to shallow center. Kyle Tucker scored. Okay, so the Astros are actually up 5-0 over the Mets, and they play an afternoon game tomorrow before heading back home on Thursday night to play host to the Yankees. 1 game at Minute Maid Park, and then they open a series with the Angels. So busy times for the Astros. Great, exciting times ahead for the Rockets. Oh, I buried the lead. The Rockets, which you've probably heard by now, have officially parted ways with John Wall. They were able to come to terms on a buyout, and they gave him his release yesterday is when it was made official. So the buyout was, I think he had to, they get back $6.5-7 million of the 44. He wasn't going to play here. And once that decision had been made that he wasn't going to play here, he wasn't really willing to come off the bench, or whatever the truth is about all of that. It wasn't going to be a fit. And so they did need to go into another season with John Wall on the roster. I mean, to pay that much money for a spot that you're getting no production from, and to have that kind of hanging over you, just wasn't a good look. The thought is that it may have happened. I could have missed it today, that he will sign with the Clippers, is the team that we keep hearing about. So I'm just checking to make sure I haven't missed anything. Did he say anything? No, he hasn't said anything. But so yeah, they reached an agreement for the buyout for the final season of his contract. And here's the thing: they also issued this statement from the top to bottom. The Rockets organization thanks John for his professionalism, and we wish him the best. But according to several people, he's planning to sign with the LA Clippers once he clears waivers. That's what sources say. So we'll see. We will see what happens with that. John Wall is no longer going to be a Houston Rocket, and the young guys will continue to build, and we'll see what happens. I'm excited about the future for the Rockets. Really curious to see about this Houston Texans team, what kind of product they put on the field. Obviously, they've elevated so many things, and not just coaching, but just the whole really how things seem to be run. And I imagine what, and you've heard me say it before. I imagine when Lovie Smith agreed to become head coach, Lovie Smith, there were some things that he said. Yeah, we're not doing that anymore. Okay, so excited about that. They're kind of, I wouldn't say on break, but kind of on break before everything gets underway in late July as they head to training camp at the end of the month. So we will see about all of that. And I'll keep you updated, of course, on the Houston Astros. So with that, we are out of time. Thank you guys for making this adjustment to time, for joining us, for joining the show at 7. And for those of you who watch the replay, still drop some things in the chat. Let me hear from you. Hey, Michael Scott, thank you for being here. Charles Drayden, Kenneth Kinney, good to see you. Of course, my sister Sylvia, and all of you who chimed in. I appreciate you. A special thanks to Coach Michael Haywood. I appreciate him. And Wimbledon's underway. I've got to say this before I go. Serena Williams lost earlier today in 3 sets. Coco Gauff had a rough start, but she pulled it out. She won in 3 sets. And Serena, who of course has not played a tournament since last Wimbledon, played today and was unsuccessful. Is she done? Obviously, she's earned the right to be done on her own terms, but we'll see. We'll see what happens. Is she going to play the U.S. Open? Will that be the last hurrah? We'll see what happens. Hey, listen, that's going to do it for me today. Remember, register to vote. If you're in a part of the country where you still have primaries, make sure you participate in those, right? It's not just about big elections. As we know now, they are all big elections, right? Every one of the election matters. And we've got to be prepared. You got to play the long game. And the long game is really about showing up. So here's what I encourage you to do. Get registered to vote. Help somebody else get registered to vote. Become familiar with the issues for yourself so that you're getting the information right. And vote your values, right? What matters to you? What impacts you and your family, your neighborhood, your community? Vote that way. I would never tell you how to vote, but I am going to strongly encourage that you do vote. And I think that if you vote your values, that we could make a lot of headway in the fall. So I'm going to leave it at that. And if you haven't seen any of these January 6th hearings, it is history. And I'm big on reading, but you can watch some of that stuff. And because they'll be writing about this in the history books. They're going to say, man, we thought Watergate was something. But then there was January the 6th. So I just encourage you to check it out. Think about it what you will, but at least be a participant and learn for yourself. All right, everybody, make it a great week. If you're in Houston, stay hydrated. Even though we're going to get some rain the next few days, it's still going to be hot and muggy. Be safe out there in those streets. And remember, if you're not vaccinated, get vaccinated. COVID is still alive and well. Protect yourself. It doesn't mean that you won't get COVID, but you may not be deathly ill or need a ventilator. So I think it's wise to get vaccinated and boosted and just make smart moves. Like if you see me out in public places, in the grocery store especially, I'm gonna be masked up. So don't be acting funny and looking at me like I'm crazy, or do. It doesn't matter. But I appreciate you guys all being here. I'll see you next week. Make it a great week. Remember, do something kind for yourself and do something kind for somebody else. And as Charles Drayden just dropped in the chat, vote your values, but vote. See you next time.